everyone. I'm Yasmin Taj, editor of the Economic Times International HR and CIO, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this exciting LinkedIn Live session brought to you by ET World Middle East and Disperse. Recently, ET World and Disperse together set on a journey to decode the puzzle of the war for talent. And as a result, we surveyed and interviewed some of the leading voices across India, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East to bring out the best practices, case studies, and advices that led to a carefully curated multimedia ebook, War for Talent: How to Win with Learning and Skilling. This ebook that put forward some of the best learning and skilling approaches adopted by the largest organizations across the Asia Pacific region to win the talent war. You can click on the link in the chat section to download this ebook. Mary Louie, Vice President, Human Resources, Middle East, Africa, and Turkey at Hilton, was among the leaders that we interviewed for this ebook. And to delve deeper into this subject, it is our absolute pleasure to have her again share her expertise with us. The theme for today's session is Blended Learning, the best learning format. Mary Louie has 20 plus years of experience in HR from several MNCs in various industries spanning all continents. Prior to Hilton, she led HR for various organizations like PepsiCo, Bridgestone, Coty, Sandvik, APM Terminal, etc. She has a real passion for agility, tech, and well-being. She is an avid fan of optimization and simplification, both in her personal as well as professional life. Welcome, Mary Louie. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here, Yasmin. Thank you for having me.
Great. And thank you so much for collaborating us for this ebook that we came out with on the war for talent and how can you win with learning and skilling. And as we had discussed in our earlier interactions, Mary Louie, the book identified 4 key challenges in the L&D function that need to be addressed in order to win the war for talent. And I would just read out the challenges for you and then ask you which challenge do you very closely relate to? And in your experience, how have you seen that being addressed? The first challenge that we really focused on in the ebook was on attracting and retaining the right talent, followed by designing effective learning strategy for a distributed workforce. Then came bridging the skills gap. And finally, the last challenge we focused on was reskilling the L&D teams for the new mandates of business. So Mary Louie, which challenge do you think was the most prominent for you?
Yes, thank you, Yasmin. I would say, actually, these are all very relevant challenges. And I think they all somehow relate to each other and they're very interlinked. So what I would share here is a couple of things that I've seen from my experience that are really tapping into all these 4 challenges. Is first is the question around ownership, because we're moving around from a company / manager / HR L&D led mandate towards telling our employees this is now completely up to you, and we give you full accountability and empowerment to lead, manage your own development. With that comes obviously a challenge in terms of making sure that learning and development is then understood by everyone, accessible to everyone, and we need to work on a very engaging and motivating and energizing activation so that our employees that are with us today, but also the talent, the war for talent, so the people that we want to bring on board into our organizations are seeing this and understanding that, wow, this is an organization where I can come in and it's at my fingertips to cater and design my own learning path. So I think that's a key challenge. The other point I would make is also around somehow the model that we're working on. Now with empowerment and the change of ownership, this also changes a bit the model. And there's still a focus from what I have seen that people have a view that training or L&D efforts are really the ones that are planned by others, where I'm invited to participate to something. And here we have a big role to play in the whole L&D function in HR as such, to make sure that we de-sell that proposition and that we really turn it around and make sure that L&D is something that people understand takes place, throughout the whole life cycle and a little bit every day.
Exactly. Such great points, Mary Louise. I totally agree with you. I think the way we look at learning has really transformed, especially in the past few years, where it has become very imperative to give ownership and accountability to the employee also. So while we create manager-led training programs, it's very important to align their goals to the goals of the organization and democratize it and help them understand that it's their ownership when it comes to learning. It's for their own good, and then create initiatives in a blended approach that works for the employee and the employer both. So great points. Thanks so much for sharing that. Let's come to the next point here about hybrid mode of working and how prevalent it became in the past 2, 3 years, especially Mary Louise. And a lot of focus now was put on employee experience. So, how do you think can a learning experience be created and managed in a remote setup? And were there any concerns that you saw in your own experience?
I did not see and experience concerns. I would say rather the opposite. The fact that we are now enable learning through digital means and remote has helped us to really reach such a much bigger target pool of our team members who can actually enjoy various types of learning that was maybe limited to them before and they didn't have access. Learning now also obviously can take place any time of the day, whereas before it was more controlled, it was planned. So I think from that aspect, from an organizational perspective and from an employee experience perspective, this has created a huge change in terms of the view of how I can scale my learning as an employee, but also from us in terms of building the skills. It is so much easier, again related to the previous question, if we find ways to execute and deliver and drive this stronger than we are doing today. I think that journey really needs to continue.
Yeah, I think the key word here is about accessibility, right? Even if it's a remote distributed workforce, if learning is accessible for all, and if they can learn in modes that works best for them, learning by doing or in whichever other manner they want to learn, I think that's going to be the way forward for any learning initiative in an organization, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Great, thanks. Thanks for sharing that. So, Mary Louie, in our study, we found that blended learning stood out as a winner for organizations as one of the most effective formats of learning. And you did speak a bit about that. Can you tell us a little more about how much do you agree with this?
Yeah, 100% I agree with it. And I would like to say, what do we mean with blended?
Yeah.
So blended is really that in my mind, learning is becoming much broader, meaning learning takes place in many more instances and occasions than it used to. Before it was quite maybe defined, and now it's much wider and broader. And the blended approach is obviously also we're crossing more methods of learning, meaning it's not only face to face, it's remote, it's social learning. So this I definitely agree, and I think again the 70-20-10 is also being extremely blurred, right? So on the job training, I mean, what is that? When I speak to my peer and get inspired and learn, that's not the 20%, that's the 70%. The 10%, I do an online nugget learning about something that I quickly need to get some new concept around. What's that? I'm doing that on the job. So this model is getting very blurred, and I think for very good reasons, as we are working much more towards a holistic learning and development approach, I would say. So I fully agree with that. The passion for continue to scale this blended approach, which is I see only benefits.
Yes, exactly. And the blended approach could be a mixture of very different formats of learning, as you rightly said, not the traditional ones anymore. How people learn what works for them at the end, it's about the learning experience that gets created and the kind of learning culture that gets built. So whether they want to do bite-sized learning, peer-to-peer learning, face-to-face learning, or online learning, it totally depends on what is working for your employees and how can you create that, blended approach and again make it accessible for everyone to, take full advantage of that. So great points there, Mary Louise. Thank you so much. Now I come to the point about there is so much happening in the space of learning right now. There's complete content overload, to be honest, and employees are getting a little jittery about that. So how can we avoid this overload of content for our employees and make make learning relevant for the kind of learning our employees need?
So I think one point actually on the content overload, we can also look at that from a point of view that helps us catering to all the learning styles, because the content is around, different kinds of context, right? People need interaction, they need trials, they need readings, and so on. So by default, there would be a bit of content overload if you, as one individual, look at everything that is available. As with anything, we need to bring in the focus. I think this is really key to think about when we are scaling learning in our organizations. What are the key outcomes in general for the function, but also in general for each and every person that is going to learn something new and continue to develop themselves. I think it's key to have it very much related to business needs. Then we can open up and let people do other things as well, and they will, and that's okay, because as we say, skills is not necessarily only my technical job description. This is going away, as we know, very much. But I think it would be helpful for us to help people to scroll through and understand the focus. Some of these platforms that we have as well, they are enormous, which is great. But it's very difficult as an employee to go in and see, okay, what is recommended here? Like, just give me the best one that I can do, and I don't need to look through all of this. So there is a bit of back office work that we really need to do, I think, to support our employees to see through the bus.
I absolutely agree with you. I think, as you said, yes, there is a lot of, there are a lot of options available out there. But how can we enable and empower our employees and also help them from our side to choose what is relevant for them? Maybe pick those out for them based on their roles, the business goals, their team goals, and then create those buckets for them where they can pick their learning initiatives from. I think that should be something that will be worked, because otherwise, yes, there will always be content overload and a difficulty to choose what works for whom. But it's about aligning again. Yeah, what the employee needs to learn and what the organization needs, what kind of skills the organization is looking for. So thanks for sharing that. Coming to a final question for this interaction, Mary Louise. Delivering truly impactful learning is incomplete until you really are aware of your learners' sentiments and their needs. And we did discuss this a bit through our conversation today. What do candidates expect from their job roles today in terms of learning, and how should organizations create a steady pipeline of job-ready employees capable of being productive from first day of their jobs? Now, this is a very critical question today. How can we create that pipeline, Mary Louise? I think every organization would like to hear this answer from you.
Yeah, so I would like to bring in this perspective as well here, that do we need people that are fully ready to do their jobs, or do we need them to be fully ready to engage? It's a little bit of a question difference here. Generally, I think most of us, we hire people that are ready to engage, but not fully ready. And that's a point, because if you're not fully ready, you have your learning to do, and you'll be engaged and challenged in that. Generally, what people want to be able to achieve. I mean, this is what 95% of people that come in an organization want to do. And what that means is really that they want to know that they have the resources to be able to gain or have the skills that they need to perform in their jobs. So people really expect to join organizations that can offer that. So this is really important, that we show our employees as part of our external employee value proposition, and obviously internal as well once they join us. But if we talk really about our ability to attract, then it's a fierce competition. So all organizations want to make sure that we can find the very best candidates. This is a proposition that already during talent acquisition times should be highlighted as a unique selling point for the organization on how do we offer L&D opportunities, and how do we actually view your continuous development within the organization? What do we offer in terms of tools, network, technology, And how do we see your own empowerment and accountability here? Like, what power do you have when you come in on this? And the last point I would make here, I think we also will benefit a lot from just scaling and expanding how we talk about learning and development. If you look at how people refer to their careers today, I've learned so much from these and these roles and these industries and these interactions. So if we can expand also, the scope of their learning and development function to be much more life cycle based, I think this is something that will help us drive the talent space, the war for talent in the future.
Great points to end with, Mary Louise. I think if organizations and especially learning leaders, HR leaders need to win the war for talent, they have to understand what their employees need when it comes to learning. They have to create that culture of continuous learning. They have to come up with the best tools, technologies, networks that can help empower the employees to engage and learn from the day one that they join, have the right resources in place for them. I think that's the only way forward. And obviously have a blended approach, an approach that works for employees as well as the employer, have the right kind of content. So these challenges can be all overcome if the right learning strategy is put in place to create the right learning experience, I feel. So on that note, thank you so much, Mary Louise. It was a very, very interesting conversation. There was so much to learn from you here.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Yasmin.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary Louise. Looking forward to interacting with you very soon. And to all those people watching this LinkedIn live session, do download the ebook by clicking on the link in the chat box again. Thank you so much for listening in. We'll come back with more such interesting sessions very soon. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.